Hello, everybody. A very warm welcome to this global town hall. We are so delighted to welcome you to this space. We're really looking forward to having a great conversation. We're just going to give a minute or two for everyone to come in from the waiting room into this space. But in the meantime, because we are a global network and we're a global community, do feel free to share who you are, where you're from in the chat so we can get a sense of where people are calling in from. And we will get started in a minute or two. It's awesome. So great to see people coming in from all across the world. Very warm welcome to Francesca, our global counsellor from Italy, Chelmsford. That's a wonderful place, loving that. But yeah, welcome all the way from Cairo, from Canada, from Calgary, from Eastern Finland. So yeah, just a really warm welcome to you all. I appreciate that it could be early morning for some, late for others, but hopefully this is going to be a great conversation. I suppose just to set the expectation, the global team here at the RSA have done a little bit of a takeover of the normal town hall format, really just to share some of the activity that's happening in the global space and to really begin the conversation with you all as fellows. So we're really looking forward to introducing you to some of the work that is kicking off and that's underway. And also going to be sort of sharing with you opportunities to continue the conversation after today. So this is just the beginning, and I am sure there's going to be lots that we're going to want to talk about. It is quite a packed agenda because we're so excited to share a lot of what we've been working on with you. But to start us off, I wanted to invite Andy, who is our CEO, just to set the scene and to ground us in this session. So Andy, if I could pass over to you.
Stuart, thank you. I hope you all hear me okay. Fantastic to be joining the latest of our sequence of town halls. Let me say just a few words to kick us off, picking out just one or two of the very many areas where there's intense activity occurring across the RSA, and also to pick up some of the helpful suggestions you've all made about highlights of the fellowship over the past year or so. I mean, just in terms of forthcoming events, the one really relative today for your diary is, of course, our Fellows Festival, our second Fellows Festival, scheduled for the 17th of June, a whole sequence of events in the run-up to that occurring on a global basis. This follows hard on the heels of last year's festival, which I think was the first coming together post-COVID, and a hugely positive experience, I think, for all of those that took part as a result. I think this year's will be even bigger and even better than that. I mean, the bad news is that the in-person tickets are now sold out, although do add your name to the waiting list. But the good news is that anyone can still enjoy the day's events online, so please do sign up for that if you haven't already. I can absolutely guarantee another terrific event. And particularly this year, what we sought to do in the design of the Fellows Festival is to make fellows themselves, yourselves, even more central to the organisation of the day through workshops and events of various types. So that is coming soon, and please do sign up soon to avoid missing out on that. The second, I think, especially from a global perspective, very significant change since we last got together at a town hall meeting was that we've introduced right across the fellowship our new digital platform, Circle. We now have more than 1,500 fellows actively using that platform, sharing their experiences and co-creating on a vast variety of issues. Again, if you haven't signed up yet, it's not too late, so do join as quickly as possible. Success of Circle will rely on all of us as fellows actively contributing. We've made a fantastic start, I should say, over the last month or so, but so much more potential contained within Circle to do co-creating on our Design for Life mission, but also picking up your own ideas to move forward initiatives of various types. One of the themes that comes across very clearly from some of the highlights of fellowship that a number of you have sent in is just how much you all collectively value the global footprint that the RSA has. And of course, that's the core theme of today's town hall. Our more than 31,000 fellows are spread across more than 90 countries across the planet. And one of the great virtues of the Circle platform is that enables us to connect across borders in a way that was never quite possible previously. And judging by your comments, that's something that's hugely valued across the fellowship. Almost all of the challenges society that we're wrestling with right now can only be tackled at a global level, and the RSA is certainly distinctive, if not unique, in having the capacity to operate across borders through our fantastic fellowship. And today really is about telling you a bit more about our plans, our strategy when it comes to all matters global, how best to extract most value from our fellowship footprint in so many countries, how best can we collaborate and cooperate and co-create together to achieve that social impact. And what you'll hear from Shirin and from Alexa and from Philippa and from Nishan is the many and various ways that we are beginning to make that a practical reality at the global scale. I hope you enjoyed today. Look forward to fielding some of your thoughts, suggestions and reflections as ever about how we make success of our emergent but tremendously exciting global strategy. I think with that, Shirin, I hope that's enough to kick us off. I'll pass the floor back to you.
That's great. No, thank you so much, Andy. And I think that really just sets the intention for what it is we want to talk to you guys about today and what we're really excited to share with you. So I suppose just to say, as Andy said, we're going to be, so I suppose I really should introduce myself, and I'll be sort of introducing the team as we go along as well. So my name is Shirin Mani, and I am the head of global innovation here at the RSA. I've been with the RSA for 6 years, so I've sort of have experienced the wonderful plethora and mystery that is the RSA. But today I'll be sharing with you about how we're hoping to develop a global network of networks piece. With us, we also have Alexa, who is the director of RSA US. We have Philippa, who is the director of RSA Oceania, and we have Nishan as well, who is an associate supporting us with really exploring the potential and how we can support growth and connection within the Canada region. So we're going to be taking a bit of a whirlwind through what we're doing in RSA UK to really ground and sort of have that foundation of global development, and then taking a bit of a whirlwind tour around the activity that's happening around the world. And we're really delighted that some of the fellows have joined us to share some of their stories as well. As we go through, there'll be opportunities, and we'll be inviting you to share responses. Like, we'll be asking questions, we'll be sharing some calls to action that you can take part in after today's session. If you'd like to respond to any of the questions, just do feel free to put your hand up, but equally there's the chat function as well. So if you're more comfortable sort of posing questions or responding, then that's great as well, because we'll be saving that down, and that will be part of the synthesis and feedback that we do after this session. Equally, we're going to be sharing with you a circle space, as Andy mentioned. We've launched this new digital online collaboration platform. And within Circle, then, after today, if there's anything that pops into your head or any responses to some of the questions that we posed, you're more than welcome to go into that space and to continue the conversation. So, with that, I did want to just take the opportunity to introduce Lena Christensen, who is our new Director of Fellowship. And this is really a moment for us within the RSA. The arrival of Lena, and there she's on screen, is just again a reiteration of the RSA's commitment to the fellows being the heartbeat of the organisation, and her and the team are leading a wonderful revision and sort of regrounding of our fellowship strategy, which is collaborating and connecting around the world, and how we can create spaces to convene, to amplify and enable the work of the fellows. Lena, did you want to say a quick hello?
I'd love to. Hi, everybody. Really nice to see you all, and thank you for joining, regardless of whether it's really, really early morning, afternoon, or in the middle of the night for you. Really appreciate it. I see a few different faces on the screen that I recognize, which is very lovely. But if I haven't yet had a chance to meet with you, I hope to see many of you over the sort of days, weeks, and months to come. And hopefully you'll find today really, really useful. But great to be here.
That's great. Thank you so much. So we're going to kick off with what I would like to share with you all today, which is really around what Andy spoke about, which is how can we as a community, as a network, have the greatest social impact? How can we enable our community in the most effective way possible to respond to some of the global challenges? So it's just to say, and if we could go back a slide, Alexa. There we go. So I suppose it's just to say that a quick introduction to the RSA as a global community. We know that there's 31,000 fellows, and that 12% of that is a global audience, and is our global fellows around the world. We have affiliates both in the US and also in Oceania who really ground that community and make sure that we have that reach around the world. We do that, and we catalyze the conversation and the energy that fellowship brings through creating spaces virtually in Circle, as well as having then fellows that sort of group into hubs. There's salons that we run, the Townhall here. So, and then also the Fellows Festival that Andy mentioned. So creating those spaces for our fellowship to meet, connect, and to take action. We also then have the Design for Life programme, which was launched last year, and the interventions afford another opportunity for fellows to engage in the RSA's work and to feed into it, to help support it, to breathe reality and life into the work that the RSA does. So if we move on, the global journey of the RSA has been one that we have been walking since the very founding of the RSA, 270 years ago. But in particular, over the last sort of 7 or 8 years, we've really honed in and we focused on refining, iterating, experimenting with how we can be a global organization. There's a lot on here, and I'm just going to touch on it, but we'll be sharing with these slides afterwards. But it's just to demonstrate that the RSA has had this has really sort of focused and has invested in being a global organization. And we've learned a lot during this experimentation stage. But now that we've got the launch of Design for Life, this really affords us the opportunity to take all of that experimentation and learning and to really bring intention to our global work. So if we move on. So as Andy mentioned, we are an amazing group of 31,000 people. But we know that we are small in scale compared to the global challenges facing us. We are going through a process of multiple crises, polycrises, if you will, happening in multiple forum, economic, environmental. We've got the mental health crisis that's facing us. But at the same time, we know that at the RSA, we have this amazing, unique collection of ingredients and responses to these challenges. So the question really is, how do we take these ingredients? How do we take these unique attributes that we have as a social impact organization to really then have the most effective response to facing and having systemic impact in these global crises that we have as a community? So if we could just move to the next slide. Thank you. So the RSA, built into our very bones as a social change organization, is the importance of convening, of amplifying and enabling action. How do we bring people together, have those ideas? How do we then take action and then amplify that? So with that, and with the launch of the mission last year, to enable people, places, and the planet to flourish in harmony, as a global team, we really reflected on that, and sensing the energy coming out of the community of fellows that we were meeting through our programs, being in conversation with our partners, we realized that in particular, there's two areas that we can really focus and develop in order to have the greatest impact. So we're going to reimagine the fellowship offer to really create that cohesive, connected community. And then weaving together a network of networks, we want to unlock the potential of network effects. So if we can go on to the next slide. So just introducing this concept of what do we mean by a network of networks? So we want to identify allies, collaborators, people who potentially have access to different audiences that we do, who are maybe focusing on, who share the same mission that we do, but maybe can bring a completely different perspective to that to enhance and to multiply the effect that we have. We know at the RSA that we have the ability to learn together, to spot opportunities together. So we really want to hone in on the network effect that we want to have as an organization and to become much more intentional about how we do that work. So really sort of achieving a bit of an economies of scale from the work that we do. Saying that, whenever we want to convene this network, we want to then create these thematic epicenters within this network so that people can really see themselves and can connect to the network of networks. So at the minute, what we're doing is that we are reaching out to other networks, and we'd love to get your thoughts on that, to see where are the potential alliedships, and then what are the thematic areas that are in need. So where's the gap? Where can we add the most value as an organization based on the mission that we've got, and then the impact that we want to have? So we are relatively early in this journey, but what we're hoping to do is over the next few months to really go out and listen. That's already underway, and the fellowship community is 100% essential to this journey. So with that, we do have some questions, but before we go into the questions, I did just want to pause because another essential part of this, as I mentioned, is the fellowship offer. So I'd like to introduce Jamie, who is the Head of Fellowship Engagement for Nations and Regions. Jamie, did you just want to introduce about the work that you're doing around the fellowship?
Absolutely, thanks, Sharon. And I know quite a few people on the call today, we've already started some of these conversations, and I think that's really exciting to see. As Sharon mentioned when she was introducing Lena, we're very much looking at what does the fellowship mean? What does it mean to be a fellow? What are those essential core elements of that? And again, that's very much at its starting phases. We'll be looking forward to working with many different partners across the fellowship and beyond to develop that. But it's really this sense of looking at the core, the basis that every fellow can expect from participating in this fellowship, whether you're wherever you are in the world, however many fellows surround you. We know that certain areas have a greater concentration of people, but through resources such as Circle, through the kind of offers that we're able to make, we should be able to connect you into that truly global community of 31,000. So we're really going to be pulling together what those essential parts are, what it is that people take from their fellowship as the most attractive components. And we'll be coming back to you to explore those in more detail. And I suppose as a starting point today, what I would love to open up for your reflections, whether that be in the chat or through the conversation on Circle, is really what do you see as the essential components of your fellowship? You're joining us today from all over the world. Some of you will be long-term fellows, some of you will have come very recently to our community. What are the elements that you see as essential, as the really attractive core parts that when you're explaining to someone else what that fellowship offer and community is? Because I think that helps us to start to focus in on where our work will be and to be able to come back to you at a later date with some further details on that. So I would be fascinated to see that and certainly to continue that discussion with you as we move forward.
That's great. Thank you. So this is an opportunity. If people have any sort of anything that's popped, that's come front of mind around themes, around the question that Jamie has posed around the essential components of the fellowship offer. As I said, feel free to put hands up. Feel free to put any comments into the chat. But also just to say that these questions will be going into Circle as well. So if you're like me and need to process a little bit, this is not your only opportunity to feedback. But yeah, just if there are any sort of thoughts coming to mind, do feel free to pop your hands up. Equally, we can keep motoring on because there is a lot to get through, but very welcome any ideas. So yeah, establishing a common purpose. Yeah, I think whenever I talked about those network effects, I think that's something that's really front of mind for us, that people understand the purpose that they're coming into the network in order to achieve. So I really take that point, Ed. I love it. So a prompt to Jamie, looks like you've got some follow-up homework for you there. So yeah, I think a point that Francesca made around, it is to acknowledge that having been at the RSA for 6 years, over those 6 years, there have been sort of different sort of drivers of the conversation, whether it's think like a system, act like an entrepreneur, etc. But I think the Design for Life mission that was shared last week is a complete step change, is a real refocusing of the RSA about how we can push the conversation. The role of the RSA, we've got a great privilege of being a charity where we can potentially be in a position where we bring people together to explore areas where others would fear to tread, as it were. And would and I think the opportunity we have to really build regeneration, resilience and rebalancing into the foundation of the work that we do. I think that's to say that the intention of the RSA is that this is our mission and this is the work that we want to do. We want to establish and we want to invest in the long term. So we promise we will stop sort of pivoting every sort of 90 minutes. And so I'm conscious of time. So as I said, this conversation will continue on afterwards. But what I would like to do now is I would like to introduce Philippa, who is our director in RSA Oceania. And it's very early morning for Philippa at 2 a.m., I believe it is. So we will be very gentle with you, Philippa, but we're really excited to hear about what you're going to share with us today, because it's amazing what you've been doing in regards to regenerative futures. So I will pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Shirin. I'm just going to share my slides for everybody. And yes, you're absolutely right. It is very early for me. It's currently 1:29 in the morning. So my apologies in advance. I'll try to stay as lucid as I can. So as Shirin just mentioned, my name is Philippa Duffy, and I'm the director of the RSA's Oceania network. I'm joining you today from the unceded lands of the Turrbal and Gubbi Gubbi people, who are the traditional custodians of inner North Brisbane, which is where I live in Australia. And I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And for those of you who aren't aware, the Oceania network is a diverse community of changemakers spread across Australia, New Zealand and the Pacific. And in line with the RSA's Design for Life mission, we support and inspire collective action towards resilient, rebalanced and regenerative futures so that people, places and planet can flourish in harmony for the long term. And we do that in the ways, or through the ways that I've outlined here on this slide, by providing pathways for fellows to meaningfully engage in the RSA's regenerative mission, by creating opportunities for fellows to connect with other fellows in the Oceania network and with fellows across the globe, which is why all of our events are timed for either a UK or a US audience so that everyone can participate, and to facilitate those global connections and collaboration. And we're really looking forward as well to Circle, which I know both Lena and Shirin and Jamie mentioned, so that will accelerate those connections even further. We also support and enable fellows projects such as the Australian Career Book Award, which recognises industry-leading career books focused on skills advancement. And that project is now in its 5th year, which we're really excited about, and it's led by one of our Melbourne fellows, Lawrence Arnold. In addition to facilitating global connections, we also foster cross-network learning and exchanges through initiatives such as the Scotland Oceania Mentorship Pilot, which took place a couple of years ago, which more than 45 fellows participated in across both networks, and that was really well received from everyone in that program, which is really exciting, and I know is going to be a blueprint for the mentorship work that we have going forward at the RSA. And we also work closely with the RSA Sustainability Network over the which we've done over the last 18 months, including partnering on 2 event series, which some of you might have participated in, including our most recent one on long-termism and good ancestry, which was inspired by the work of Roman Krznaric. And you can see those events on our YouTube channel just by searching for RSA Oceania. And that brings me to our core offering, which is our events and content, which Shirin mentioned earlier. So for anyone who's attended an RSA Oceania event before, you'll know that we partner with fellows and networks to deliver an inspiring program of thematically driven events, featuring global thought leaders like the aforementioned Roman Krznaric, and other thought leaders such as Tyson Yunkaporta, who's a very famous Aboriginal author and academic, and Helen Norberg Hodge, who is a leader in the localism space, local economies and new economies. And you can see at the top of this slide some of our stats and the topics that we've covered, such as collective imagination, long-term thinking, Indigenous knowledges, regenerative futures, and some of the organisations that we partnered with to deliver those events and other programs. And I'll be mentioning the podcast Regeneration Rising project, which we have a little promo for in the corner in a second, and I'll also share a brief video. We are actively committed to advancing the RSA's regenerative agenda in line with our Design for Life mission. And our goal in the next 12 to 18 months, is to grow the regenerative ecosystem within the RSA, which will contribute to the networks approach that Shirin mentioned. And we hope to do this by convening communities of practice, curating opportunities for fellows to learn and engage, facilitating cross-sector partnerships, and driving the work that we've already been doing around the Regeneration Rising podcast, which I'll move to now. So this is our podcast, which we're clearly very proud of. The podcast is a collaboration between myself, Josie Borden, who was our previous head of regenerative design at the RSA, and Daniel Christian Wahl, who is the author of Designing Regenerative Cultures and also the Bicentenary Medalist for 2021. And for the past 9 months, Daniel, Josie, and myself have been exploring how regenerative practice is helping people in place collectively redesign their communities, cities, and economies and create a thriving home for all on our planet. And we've been doing this with the help of wonderful guests like the people you can see featured on the screen, Anne Paulina, Kate Rayworth, Paul Hawken, Pamela Mang, and John Elkington, among others. And to accompany the launch of the podcast, we've also been holding a series of webinars, which I hope some of you have participated in, with leading thinkers in the regenerative space. And that's enabled us to do a bit of a deep dive into the principles and approaches behind regenerative thinking with guests like Laura Storm, Helen Norberg Hodge, Tyson Younger Porter again, who's come back for a second time, and Giles Hutchins, who is a regenerative leadership expert. And so now I'm just going to show you a little promo of the first series. And really, I suppose my call to action is just to listen to the podcast, share your thoughts, join our regenerative community. And if you're interested in pursuing this work or being more involved, please reach out to me and we can have a chat, because this is very much an area we would like to further and something that we're committed to at RSA Oceania. So those are my details. So that was the promo for our series 1, and I really hope that you'll engage with that work, and we invite you to listen to series 2, which is coming out in a few months' time, 3 months' time. So if you want any more information, please check out our pages or contact me directly. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Philippa. As I said in the chat, I can heartily recommend listening to the podcast whilst walking somewhere. It's just the most amazing experience, and the amazing diverse perspectives that are on that podcast and that come from all different backgrounds is just a reminder that whether you're a professional boardroom, whether you're a gardener, whether you are a fruit stall seller, that you're all indigenous to planet Earth is really just the essence of the RSA's mission of both people and planet, that every individual is part of humanity and should have the opportunity to flourish. And that's really what the RSA is all about. So thank you so much, Philippa, for producing that. And I'm very excited for season 2. So with that, and do really go and check out the website, the web pages, the webinars, the podcast. There's such rich content there. But with that, I'm going to hand over to Alexa, who is going to be sharing with us some of the RSA US's work. Alexa.
Thanks, Shirin, and thanks, Philippa. That movie always just makes me have goosebumps. And I think just that concept of good ancestry is so powerful, and I think has shaped my desire to step into leadership at the RSA and also collaborate more with fellows in terms of long-term objectives for social change. And I think for me, the value of the RSA, even before I became a formal employee, and the membership was always around having that 260-year-old lineage and being connected to something that is so much bigger than any one individual. And so at RSA US, we often talk about social change as this choreography of different elements. And when we think about the experience that we're trying to give to our fellows, it's how do we keep that flame lit? How do we inspire? How do we allow people to nurture that sense of creativity, that restless pursuit of social change, and support that individual agency? Then there's an angle to it where we want to nurture communities of practice. We want to take leading scholarship, both academic as well as working with social change practitioners, to ignite powerful learning communities, to establish a knowledge commons that helps ground what we're learning together to make social change happen at an accelerated rate. And then I think the third component that the RSA really offers is through a convening authority, how we work to hack, provoke, challenge the evolution of our institutional systems towards more equitable outcomes. And so I think the RSA is really unique in holistically servicing these three elements. And it's amazing to work at these levels. I think when we don't see these elements in harmony, for example, if you just invest in individual agency, you do consciousness raising, but then the systems are the same, right? And so how can we really spread our energy across these elements? And for us, this really takes collaborating with our fellows. We're a small team here in the US. We have 3, soon to be 4 staff members. And so what we found to be successful is how we work with fellows to really shape what we're trying to do, both strategically and in terms of the broader impact that we're trying to have. And so anyone who is perhaps new to the RSA ecosystem, this is a bit of a shortcut for ways that we have to engage with folks. We have incredible thematic networks that are fellow initiated. So if there are particular communities of practice, areas of debate that you would like to see ignite conversation throughout the fellowship, you can definitely reach out to myself or Claire, who heads up our community. We have coalition leads, so fellows have self-organized around really important issue areas where they want to aggregate the agency and the resources that they have to change an important social or policy issue, to change norms or behaviors within different fields. We saw a lot of fellows, for example, mobilized during COVID around issues of mass incarceration, which informed recommendations to the Biden administration. We've seen fellows start thematic networks around deliberative democracy, around gender equity. Shortly, I'm going to pass over to Octavia, who is an RSA US fellow and has done some incredible work to explore dialogues around gender equity, and also has participated in our mentorship program. And I want to have Octavia share a bit about her work. But just to cover off a few of these additional roles, we have a governance structure that is really serving the fellowship. So 50% of our board actually comes from fellowship. We have an ambassador program that Claire manages, which means that we're creating geographic hubs of fellows across the US to ensure the hyper-local element of the RSA, that we can speak to different places and help practitioners really create this whole systems leadership for change at a place-based perspective. A lot of the programmatic work that we've done in the US, from the Inclusive Growth Accelerator in Chicago to our Future of Work program in New Jersey, has been working at that place-based level. And often the value that we find is to help support place-based actors in being networked better with a global community of practice around the issues that they care most about. We're just starting to look into pioneering the Systems Entrepreneur in Residence program to really profile and spotlight important interventions and innovations that are aligned with our Design for Life strategy, and to figure out how can the RSA become a commons? How can we amplify the work of these powerful interventions where we're not just designing things in-house, but we, in the spirit of generosity, sharing the resources that we have, from media and comm support to access to financing to the social capital and connections that we have in our network, to make that available to people that are working on these incredible moonshots that are connected to Design for Life. So I think that's a important development, one that we want to get more fellow input into our strategy. And then we've had our mentorship program, which has really been piloted in the US, and we're looking at rolling out more globally for fellows, but has really connected fellows with opportunities to strengthen their connections, to access wisdom. It's not necessarily, a pure play intergenerational mentoring. Oftentimes younger fellows have much to offer to our older fellows and vice versa. And so I think, there's so many opportunities where the RSA can help create those networks for social change, and where our job really is to service that connection point so we can be an amplifier for social change, for connection, for creating the sort of serendipity that allows so much of this magic to happen. I want to hand over to Octavia before I share some more general discussion questions where we'd love to get input as we develop this strategy further. But Octavia, you've been with us from the beginning, and I just love everything that you're about and how you've stood and in the RSA Fellowship. And so would just be curious to hear a bit more about what that's meant for you, how you came to start the Gender Equity Network. You also are a newly published author, and that was a result of a mentorship opportunity that you had with the RSA. So it'd be great to just hear a bit about your journey.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Alexa, for that warm introduction, and so happy to be a part of this event today. And a special hello to some of the new fellows that mentioned they've recently joined the fellowship. I have been a fellow now for 12 years. I joined the fellowship actually while I was living in London, but then moved to the United States for the second time, a few months after I attended my first event at RSA House. So the bulk of my time in the RSA really has been while I have been outside of the UK, and being a fellow has been such a transformative experience for me. So proud to be a part of this network. I am an author, as Alexa referenced, of a book called Push Pivot, and I'm a career coach. I work with companies across the globe to support and advance their underrepresented professionals. But during my time as a fellow, I've done a number of things and made an array of connections that have really advanced my professional development and my personal development in so many ways. 9 years ago, I was an ambassador for the RSA's Diaspora Changemakers program, which provided networking and personal development opportunities to 100 potential leaders from the African diaspora. I am from Zimbabwe. Any of you who might be from Sub-Saharan Africa would have recognized that from my last name, Gorodima, it's Shona. I served in the RSA's Equity Circle, which was looking at opportunities to diversify the fellowship and ways we could do that here in the United States, and we met for a year to do that. I co-hosted an event here in Los Angeles where I live with the British American Project before the pandemic. That was fantastic. I took part in the RSA US mentorship program, which Alexa referenced. I was on the steering committee to think about how we could put that program together. Then I served as a mentor for the first year. And then when the call to action came out for the second year, I raised my hand and said, I would actually love to be mentored this time, because as Alexa referenced, I wanted to achieve one of my biggest goals, which was to become a published author. And I was paired with not just one mentor, but multiple individuals who really helped guide and shape that journey for me. I signed my book deal shortly after that, and my book is now available in stores across the United States and in the UK and in Australia as well. And I lead the Gender Equity Network, which Alexa referenced, that actually happened by accident. I think 4 years ago, I asked if I could put together a salon discussing the gender pay gap. It was such a fantastic experience doing that. I asked if there might be more opportunities to have conversations. And at that point, I was told about the thematic networks and was asked if I would like to lead one. And so since that point, for the past 4 years, I really am passionate about bringing together industry leading thinkers and advocates who might not already be in the fellowship. And sharing perspectives with us and more broadly about how we can further the dialogue on equal rights and status and opportunities regardless of gender. We've talked about the pay gap, we've talked about women in politics, we've talked about how to elevate and own your executive presence, we've talked about media and podcasting. Our next event is on June 1st. This one's really dear to my heart. It's breaking the stigma and supporting women's mental health. We're going to be talking about the contributing risk factors to common mental health conditions for women, how to destigmatize mental health topics. I'll be leading a conversation with psychotherapist Stephanie Serrati. She's also the author of this brilliant book, really looking forward to that conversation, and would also love for anyone listening, these events are open to all. And if you have ideas or suggestions on topics or conversations that you would like to take part in, please do reach out to me. I would love to connect. And thank you, Alexa, for everything that you shared. I had a conversation just on Friday with a fellow that I nominated to join the fellowship. She's in London, and she was asking me, how can I get involved? What can I do? And a lot of things I talked about were actually what you shared in this ecosystem. And so even though she and I are 5,000 miles apart, she was really excited and invigorated to hear about the breadth of the work. So thank you for all that you do.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Octavia. I feel like you're just a masterful fellow in showing up and volunteering in so many different ways. And I think, often that fellowship and the membership with the RSA can be a lifelong journey. I think there are times when we see fellowship as really active, where there's a clear kind of need that you have or something that you want to accomplish or a professional development objective that you have. Other times it's giving back and being of service to someone else. And sometimes we also just don't have the bandwidth. So it's enough to just read the journal and feel like you're part of a bigger church, making social change in the world. So really appreciate both your leadership in the RSA US, but then also what you've done to create opportunities for others in the network. I want to shift now just to some of the ways in which we're thinking about honing this identity of an amplifier for social change. I think with our new Design for Life strategy, there's this incredible opportunity to partner more deeply with our fellows in terms of surfacing new interventions. And so I mentioned my colleague Sean, who's going to be developing this innovation directory to help spotlight interventions that are in the fellowship that fellows are working on, where they might encounter barriers for change, where the RSA could lend a hand. As well as find solidarity with other social innovators, systems change makers who are demonstrating leadership across these areas. I think one of the ways in which we feel like we can really add value is in showing people ways in which they're leading as part of a much bigger system, creating that sense of solidarity and peer support, especially around emerging practice, where there are ways of doing things that haven't been totally normalized yet. So this is really in development. We're thinking about how the RSA US can be much more of a commons in terms of creating opportunities for fellows to access some of our core assets, whether it be our connections, our media and comm support, visibility through kind of blogging about key issues, our convening power in terms of being able to access kind of gatekeeper institutions if that becomes paramount. And so this is something we'll be developing over the next 6 months to really fine tune how we can transition into being much more of an amplifier of social change and partnering deeply with our fellows. And as part of this, these were the questions that we had for you that we're also bringing to our US fellows. What would you like to see as part of that toolkit? If the RSA is to become much more of a commons, what core services would be great? We've already heard about matchmaking, about people who want to set up pods of communities around issues that they care about. And then what interventions do you see that you could use support from? I think we want to bring much more visibility and spotlighting attention. So these are some of the questions that we had. And we'll be developing, further thoughts around, and we'll have some checkpoints to just get the rich wisdom and insights that our fellowships bring. I know someone had a question about Canada as well. So I want to also bring in my colleague Nishan, who has been spearheading our effort in Canada. And just so excited, Nishan, to welcome you and to hear about all the amazing things that are happening in Canada.
Thank you, Alexa. And I hope everyone can hear me okay. I apologize if my internet connection is a bit unstable. Being in Eastern Finland, we currently have some reconnaissance flights flying over the house, so my satellite internet connection is a bit jittery. That's a conversation for another day. Of course, I'm in Eastern Finland and talking about Canada. So Canada, really, I think I'm just trying to kind of piece this in a way that makes sense and echoing what's been said by Alexa and Philippa, and also listening to the chat. So I think really when it comes to Canada, Canada has, the RSA is older than Canada, modern day Canada as we know it. And the RSA itself has had historical interconnections with Canada from the earliest journals up until more recently. There's 280 approximately fellows across Canada, going right across from the far reaches of Nova Scotia and Newfoundland and Labrador right the way through to the Northwest Territories. I believe there is one fellow in the Yukon. I'm not sure who that is. I'm still trying to find out who that is, but that interests me a fair deal. But really, when we're talking about the emerging Canadian fellowship, or at least what we're trying to achieve in Canada, it's really embodying the question of, or moving from questions of knowing to questions of belonging, and building teams of knowledge and communities of practice. So I mentioned there the 3 points of regrafting fellows, recruiting fellows, and routing networks. So with the regrafting of the fellows, these are the fellows that are already in play in Canada, and these are people that we're actively reaching out to and seeing what's what. But in terms of recruiting new fellows, it's not a numbers game as it is recruiting quality fellows and engaged fellows. So these are people that are, you know, knee deep, neck deep in their initiatives, their change making, the stuff that's going on within their various ecosystems across the 10 provinces and 3 territories in Canada, and seeing how the RSA can actually, you know, empower that, embody that, and connect that work through a wider, broader global lens, and potentially learn from some of those efforts that are taking place to take them across to wider RSA fellows and initiatives, but also perhaps injecting some knowledge and experience from the RSA into these various ecosystems. So I wanted to really focus on some of the stuff that we've been doing through an RSA Canada lens, and then I'm going to hand over to 2 fellows and highlight some of their initiatives. But really, so most recently we had a social innovation immersion that was at RSA House, and that was in partnership with Social Innovation Canada and Community Foundations Canada. So the idea of that learning journey was to bring together 50 Canadians from the social innovation space, a diverse group ranging from the National Assembly of Black Communities, community foundations, philanthropic foundations, various change makers, movers and shakers, and bring them to the UK and being exposed and immersing with some really innovative and leading initiatives and foundations and organizations and people, and exchange ideas and really embody what I think the RSA is about, having this this convention of ideas and knowledge and experiential exchange, with a view of building those relationships and the delegates going back to Canada to go back into their communities, hopefully feeling a bit more enlightened and empowered, which I believe was a great success. A couple of other points that I've just raised here, just as milestones, or at least events that are happening in the Canadian ecosystem, where we have fellows that are either organizing, actively leading, or involved in some way. So we have the Community Foundations of Canada Reconnect Conference that's happening at the beginning of June. Michelle Baldwin, who is from the Community Foundation of Canada, who's on this call today, she is part of that, and we're working very closely with the Community Foundations. So they are an organization of all of the representing all of the community foundations from across Canada, more or less, and they're getting together to reconnect and figure out what to do now. Like, how do we re-engage and really embody what it is that we're trying to achieve through a philanthropic lens. The digital inclusion event, which is happening in Calgary in the second week of June, which is being run by the United Way of Calgary, as well as KPMG. That's really looking at, again, convening people to figure out how we solve and bridge the gap around digital inclusion and digital equity. And that's bringing together a lot of corporates, a lot of academic partners, a lot of people in the digital and tech space to figure that out and see where we can collaborate. The Victoria Forum is an initiative that takes place in Victoria biannually, and that is very much a policy forum that's worked in conjunction with the University of Victoria, as well as the Senate of Canada and Global Affairs Canada. So hopefully I'm painting this picture here that's showing the various levels of engagement where we're at the policy layer here. And they're very much working on 3 different areas, talking about turf and trust and policy, and how you can bring those together and bring the different people together in order to really build and influence those policy shifts and those activities. And then, of course, looking again, zeroing back down at more grassroots and municipal and provincial level, and we have 2 fellows in particular who I've been working very closely with, or a newly minted fellow in Calgary who is running these two initiatives here. One is Converge, which is a pan-Canadian coalition of mental health industry and industry adjacent organizations that are looking at how to build the better on and off ramps to the mental health highway across Canada's different mental health ecosystems. So again, while we're touching on the same types of logic and thematic work, but now we're talking about in the mental health space. So I'm really trying to illustrate the breadth of interactions that we have within the RSA. And then, of course, just moving on very briefly into the Rural Design Network that is also being run by two newly minted fellows in Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, which is looking at designing systemic interventions that are rooted in regenerative living and circular economies. But with that in mind, I want to give some time to two fellows that are here specifically to talk about their projects. The first fellow is Anita Lee, who's based in Toronto, and she's going to just briefly talk about the Green Line. So Anita, can I hand over to you?
Yes, thanks so much, Nish. It's lovely to be here. Thank you so much, everyone. So my name is Anita Lee. I am an RSA Canada Fellow. And as Nish said, I am the founder and editor-in-chief of a hyper-local independent news outlet called The Green Line. We're all about, as you can see from the slide, investigating the way we live to help young and other underserved Torontonians survive and thrive in a rapidly changing city. So our news outlet is very much connected to encouraging people to engage civically and also just participate in democracy, especially among younger folks. I do want to say that RSA Canada has been so integral to the development of the Green Line. We actually only launched in April 2022. And within a year, we've gotten a lot of traction. We were nominated for our first ever journalism award. We've been recognized globally for our action journey model, which is a deliberate model that kind of educates people about, moves them down a particular kind of pathway of understanding of a particular systemic issue facing Torontonians. And it really leads them to take action on their own terms. So thanks to Nish and a former RSA staffer, Jess White, I was able to get funding for this event, actually, that I'm going to share with you in the chat. It's actually an election and focus event. We had a mayoral election in October. We're actually having another one next month because our mayor resigned for a particular reason. And so it was a really successful event that had about 80 people turn out. The event was actually about combating polarization and bringing folks from across the political spectrum together to have very, productive political discourse. And this was targeted towards young people in particular. We partner with the RSA Canada and the Center for Social Innovation in Toronto, which is also one of the activators that RSA Canada is getting more involved with, and I'm also involved with as a fellow there as well. And the other thing that I want to share is a lot of the work that we've done has been supported by the RSA in terms of journalism and innovation. So our publication is very much recognized for that. And I just dropped another chat, a link in the chat that shows how we kind of meet our audience where they are in terms of using multi-platform kind of skill sets to create journalism that's tailored to platforms like Instagram and TikTok, for example, to better engage people in the news. So needless to say, the fellowship has been extremely valuable for me. I fully intend to continue. It's been so fantastic in terms of connecting to other folks who are really passionate about the same issues I am. And it's been really galvanizing. So I think since I've become a fellow, it's just only been really beneficial to my work in the Green Line ultimately. And I look forward to continuing to work with Nish and seeing the RSA Canada expand. So thank you so much. If anybody is interested in collaborations, I also work often in the US. I actually teach at the City University of New York. Please reach out to me. I'll put my contact information in the chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anita. And without further ado, I'll jump over to Amir, if you're ready and with us, Amir.
Thank you, Nisham, and nice to meet everyone. I'm glad to share this. We've been working with some of you already. We have had some conversation about the project called Our Future Life. Future Life is a global initiative about capturing the stories of actualized future told by people. When it comes to future building, there is future prediction, future casting, and everything else. But the imagination part is usually not something that most people are engaged in. So the Future Life is starting a few initiatives. One of them is a first preview that we're doing with RSA Canada about the future of life and some moments of life where AI and machines are basically changing our work and how we can portray that. So the goal is to create very short 1 minute or up to 2 minutes short films or videos about moments of life that we imagine. It's not about future prediction, it's about capturing moments of life. And following that, we're preparing the larger launch, which is going to be in the fall of 2023 with the World Economic Forum, X Prize Foundation, UNESCO, and many others. And we would love to continue this work with RSA because we believe that some of these futures that are imagined and captured and portrayed could become endpoint that we want to build. And if we can see how many people are interested in those future moments, in the future pictures of life, maybe that gives us a sense of what we are striving to build and what innovation should go around that. So I hope that this project is going to be interesting for RSA. Right now, we're very excited about starting this preview mode, which is going to be happening soon in June in Canada, in Calgary. And we're getting ready for an announcement in September in multiple places. One of them is going to be during the United Nations General Assembly, but probably a few other platforms to basically announce this Global Imagination Challenge and work with a number of organizations to give everyone a chance to tell the story of the future they imagine and they want, and capture those, and to create a repository of those stories, and to start identifying which one we want to build and which one we see similarities between cultures, between nations, between age groups, between traditions and religions, and give that as an outcome, as a repository of ideas and challenges to the world as an open source project. So again, I think I'm personally an RSA US member. I've been only 2 years fellow, but I see how this network is really can be impactful in joining forces with this initiative, which is a multi-stakeholder initiative to really capture the what people are telling us, basically the future told by people. Thank you.
That's great, Amir. Thank you very much. And I was hoping you wouldn't mention that you're a US fellow, because now it seems like I've stolen you for Canadian efforts. But I hope that's really kind of given some clarity, because I know there were some people on the call that were asking what's happening in Canada, and I really wanted to give a bit of a showcase to say that there's an awful lot that's happening in Canada. There's an awful lot that we're planning in Canada, but that's not to say that that's prescriptive. By all means, that we're really open to see, what are folks doing, what are they interested in doing, and how can we connect those dots and convalesce to do that. So I wanted to end my little section and soliloquy with a quote that I've seen quite a lot recently. I've seen quite a lot recently, which is from the Nobel laureate, the Russian Nobel laureate, Ilya Prigogine, who is was a physical chemist that did a lot of work around quantum mechanics, and I won't get into that other than to say that it's quite interesting and interconnected with the regenerative work that we've been talking about. But the quote that he's cited for saying is that when a complex system is far from equilibrium, small islands of coherence in a sea of chaos have the capacity to shift the entire system to a higher order. And I wanted to mention that because I personally believe that what we're looking at within RSA Global is very much like that. We have our islands of coherence, be that in the larger island that is RSA US, the not as large island of Oceania, and our emerging island in Canada, and of course the islands that I hope to see across global as a whole. So so with that, I think I can hand back over to whoever it is I need to hand back over to.
You're handing back over to me, Nishan. Wow, what a whirlwind. That was amazing. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Alexa. Thank you, Octavia. I said thanks to Philip already. Thanks, Nishan, Anita, Amir. That was, I think, the perfect example of just the energy, the inspiration, the determination, the creativity that is within the community of the RSA. And I feel like I always feel this. I've headed up different global projects that the RSA has done, and there's just never enough time. So what I'm so delighted about is that we are determined to create more spaces, whether it's in Circle, whether it's through the network of networks, through the fellowship, you know, through the affiliates, creating different spaces just to create ever more spaces, ever more diversity, ever more connectivity in the RSA network, so that we can just be inspired and to take action to the very most of our being. So yeah, I suppose just to say, and I think just to reiterate, that we have posed a lot of information, a lot of questions to you, but also we did ask for questions during the sign up process for this. And this space, before we conclude today, is really to take in some of those questions, to encourage any reflections from today as well. So yeah, I suppose that's just to say that I'm going to pose some of the questions that people submitted to us. So I'm going to start off with an easy one that I'm going to put to Jamie. So Jamie, sort of get ready for this one. So there was a question submitted about how can the RSA expand its reach to countries where it has not traditionally worked. In particular, this person was keen to expand the network in Argentina. So that's just an easy one to warm us up.
It's a very nice, easy one, and I think that came from Ezekiel, so I've got a call with him tomorrow to discuss that. Yeah, I think for me it's about maximising those connections of networks, places and people. So we can't carry out work everywhere in the world just off our own bat. That would make sense when we get use of our capacity and our resources. But where we know that people have connections, where they have ideas, where they have partnerships that they can bring us to, then I think we can really build into that and enhance that opportunity. I think one of the things I'm really keen to see as well is how we can build better links between countries, whether that be where we've got quite established communities already, so across the affiliates and across the UK and Ireland, or where the different countries are looking at similar priorities and opportunities as well. So I think it's about being realistic. I think it's about finding where we can utilise those existing opportunities. But again, what's been really exciting for me over the last year really is seeing how much energy exists across the world, where we have fellows in different countries. I know we've got fellows in the call today from Switzerland and elsewhere who've been looking at the idea of kickstarts and local activity as well, that I think starts to give us those hubs and those connections that we can really build out of. So please do reach out. We can certainly look at what exists in terms of existing fellowship resources within your communities, but also then look at how we can connect you into the wider resource and community of the RSA through Circle, through other fellowship networks and connections as well.
Amazing, thank you. That's really great. So it was actually building on that one. There was a question around, there seems to be a US-Europe emphasis, in particular that there's no Asia time zones invitation, which a fellow spotted. And they wanted to ask, is this symptomatic of things to come? I think just from my perspective, just to reiterate that every effort is being made to connect the global community. It is absolutely not the intention for us to sort of centralize activity or to put emphasis on different parts of the world. Sort of the work that we're doing with Circle is just the foundation for us to activate that global community. And then actually the layer of activity that we can build to activate hubs to support energy and fellow-led activity around the world is then the next layer of doing that. So just to reassure you, there is no intention to sort of to reduce down or to focus or to put energy, all of our energy into just one area.
Yeah, if I can just jump in quickly on that, Sharon. I think it shows as well celebrating the activity, because we do have a fantastic network of fellows in Japan who have been engaging in great work for some time now. We had a first event with fellows in China last year, and we've had interest from other areas. So maybe it's also about how we celebrate and share those stories of fellowship impact that maybe haven't been coming across clearly enough, but I think really good point to be raised for us.
There was just one more question, and then I'm happy to open the floor. So there was one about, will there be any town halls in the States, New York in particular? So I was just wondering, Claire or Alexa, do you want to pick that up?
Sure. Yeah, we have biannual town halls, and for us, they're primary a focus point for onboarding and welcoming new fellows into our ecosystem. So now that the RSA has regular town halls, I think they've become less of in a sort of urgent space for us to engage the wider whole US fellowship, and more as a place for welcoming new fellows, orienting them to our strategy. But the biannual town halls are definitely places where we showcase regular emergent thinking and also try to get fellows engaged in different work that we're taking forward, especially areas where we have open questions where we'd like fellows' input. Our fellowship counselors are also regularly on those calls, as well as key board members and different people that are part of our ecosystem. So even if you're not a new fellow, they are just a great opportunity to meet different people in the fellowship.
And also just to chime in there as well, that we do have a regional ambassador for New York. So if you haven't already been put in touch with Sasha Mombart's our regional ambassador there, super collaborative. I'm happy to introduce you for more in person. I know we're all hungry for the in-person connections. So I'm happy to facilitate that. If you want to follow up with me directly, it's claire.byrne@thersa.org. And I know that Sasha has been kind of reigniting our New York community for in-person activities. So it'd be a great person to chat to. Thank you.
Amazing. Nishan, you've got your hand physically up, so would you like to come in there?
Yeah, sorry, I feel like I'm at school sometimes when I raise my hand. Now I just wanted to say on that note as well, I'm just thinking with my former global counselor hat on, I would say that if there are fellows that are identifying gaps, then by all means reach out to any one of us here even to say, hey, I'm doing this stuff in X location and I think it would align with the RSA, and we can figure out how we can actually connect those dots. I think the point that everyone we were making on the call today is that we're showing what we're doing right now, but this isn't prescriptive at all, and this isn't definitive. So by all means, whilst we have our limited resources, we want to be creative and find ways to empower people in their various regions and how we can actually grow the activities and and whatnot. So I'll put it up. That would just be my little call to action there.
Little invitation. Thank you, Nishan. So I just wanted to check if anyone would like to come off mute, share any reflections, any questions that you'd have in the moment. Yeah, Francesca.
I just wanted to make a very quick contribution regarding Nishan's latest comments. Thank you for saying that. And also just to note that Jamie, Vanessa and I will be working really hard, I think, to try and engage with those who are perhaps very sort of sparse fellows in regions that account for the global network, and we will do our very best to create engagement and connection. The three of us all have experience in joining forces of creativity, propagating the work of the RSA, but also receiving the expertise of fellows that are scattered. So we will do our best to be as global as we possibly can. And I think global means exactly that. It's everything that isn't necessarily covered by Oceania, US and Canada, and of course the UK and London. So I know that Jamie, Vanessa and I are working hard to make things roll out, if that's one of the better words, and also to create that sense of collectivity in spite of the sort of vast and sort of messy environment that global might indicate, because it's so diverse and sparse. But we are working on that. And I think I just put a comment in response to what Jamie responded with regards to ideas around language accessibility as well, because many people are speakers of Chinese and Spanish who are incredibly engaged fellows, but materials are consistently in English. I think there is scope for RSA materials to be translated at some point. Obviously not everything, I appreciate that, but I think there is some scope for further engagement with multi-language accessibility across the global network especially. So hopefully that makes some sense. Thank you.
No, thank you so much for that. I think it's really important to note that we are always learning, and we're part of, we did do a project with Autodesk where we translated our work. And I think that's definitely something that we do want to do more of. So I really appreciate your support, Francesca, and suggestions. This is also an opportunity for you to suggest and support the RSA in our learning of how to be a more global organization, because that's, you know, the more minds that are put to this, the better. That's the power, the strength, and the beauty of the fellowship network. So with that, I'm just going to pass over to Claire. We're 5 minutes where a lot of information has been shared today, and I acknowledge that. So I just want to be conscious and that we do finish on time so that everyone can depressurize. So if I pass over to Claire, just to talk about the fellowship itself.
Oh yeah, no pressure to follow all of that. I'll be brief, don't worry. I just wanted to share that, well, like I've mentioned multiple times in the chat, my inbox is always open. If you do want to connect with folks in the community, especially in the US with the global community, I'm happy to help. But also we're always looking for new fellows to join our global network. And if you know somebody who's just an amazing change maker in your community, who is working on amazing social innovation initiatives, and that you feel that they'll really add value to our network, then please do get in touch. I do have like a slide there that you can do the old, what you call it, when you scan your phone against it and it brings you to the page. I can never remember, QR code. That's the one. Thank you. Gosh, show my age here. But we have that set up so that if you do want to nominate a fellow on a slide, you can do that. Alexa, if you don't mind bringing up that slide. And I'm also going to just pop a few links and prompts for you if you would like to nominate a fellow in your community. Feel free to do so, and you can reach the fellowship team by email as well. So that's it. It's a short spiel. Shirin, I just wanted to share that we always welcome additions to our community, and we're always looking to grow our fellowship and bring diversity and different voices and perspectives to our work. So thank you for your time. We really appreciate you all showing up today, bringing your questions, bringing your energy, and I'll pass back to Shirin. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think, as you probably all appreciate, this is just the start of the conversation. We really want to encourage connection, encourage conversation. So there's a space in Circle, which I think, as people sort of mentioned across the conversation today, is that an online platform for us to share thoughts, ideas, respond to questions. So that will be sort of going into the chat, but also, as I mentioned earlier, we will be sort of harvesting out all of the different links and sort of synthesizing all of this into one page that we can share with you guys afterwards, because I know there was a lot of different sort of resources and links to different podcasts, etc., that are hard to capture off the chat whenever it keeps ticking up. But just on that note, just to say thank you so much for the energy that you guys brought to the chat, to the conversation, and that you continue to bring to the work that we're doing at the RSA. Every time I go into a workshop or into a fellowship space, I'm always in awe of the work that happens within the fellowship and that they're really leading on. And I just get to observe and sort of just be inspired by. So I think with that, it's to say thank you for joining us today. Unless there's any final comments from any of the global team or any final thoughts that we'd like to share. I think many thoughts have already been shared. But yeah, I just a very warm thank you, and really looking forward to continuing on the conversation. As Andy mentioned, please do come along to the Fellows Festival if you're in the UK, but there'll also be an online space as well. There'll be lots of conversations happening in Circle around the festival as well. So do log on there, and have a good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you may be in the world. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Shirin.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Sharon. Thanks, everyone.